Well, hello everyone. Welcome to Recruit, Hire, Lead to Retain. I'm your host, Deborah Reynolds, owner of About Face Image Consulting, leadership coach, image mindset, and transformation expert. My co host is recruiting and hiring expert and owner of Best Culture Solutions, Tim Dick. Welcome, Tim.
Happy Friday, or if you're in the United States, Black Friday,
Yeah, right.
right?
Absolutely. Actually, just
Yeah.
before we went live, we were talking about like the whole shopping thing. So I got to say it was I was sharing with Tim that I shop like a man. And so people go, well, do you shop like a woman or do you shop like a man? So my father was one of these people who was in a store, which a lot of guys are. They figure out what they want in advance. They actually do a direct line to what it is that they
Yeah.
want, and then they go out
Yeah.
again. That is how I prefer to shop. So what about you? How do you shop, Tim?
I'm kind of the same, but what I will do is I will do some browsing, but I don't browse just for fun. I know where I want to browse, and I'm quick.
Yeah.
I already know what I might be looking for when I go in there, and if they don't have it, see you later. But there's maybe five stores that if I were to go to a mall, that I know that I just want to quickly see what's new, and I'll get out. But I'm very purposeful in that. I don't just meander. So I'm in between. I'm in between.
Yeah, and there are times that I get in the mood where because I haven't been doing the browsing for a long period of time, I
Yeah,
will go into a mall and I will go, let's just, turn to the right when we come in and we'll circle all the way around and then go up and down the floors or wherever we need to go, and I use it kind of in conjunction with exercise walking and then
there you
seeing
go.
what's going on. But again, I don't go into every single store. There are ones that I like and don't like, but nevertheless, I'm sure people are buying up a storm right now in preparation for Christmas and
Yeah, I think so.
getting all
Well, yeah,
dressed.
and I think the other thing too is that a lot of people now, I think for Black Friday, it all happens online now too. But it's funny, I was chatting with somebody in the United States the other day, and I was surprised to find out that they didn't know what Boxing Day is. We have it here, but they don't really maybe they do have it there. I don't know, but it wasn't as big of a thing to them as it was to me. So
Wow. Okay, there you go. It's
interesting.
called cultural
And
differences. So, hey, we have
yeah,
a really good topic today. So,
okay,
and I
let's
have to
do it.
tell you, to our audience, we are very spontaneous in how we prepare our topics because we don't script anything out in advance. We kind of go, hey,
Hmm.
let's just talk about this and see what happens and what
Hmm.
rolls. So the topic today that you shared, Tim, was the three traits of the right candidate, which is number one, technical skills, number two, internal locus of control, and number three, internal passion. So this is going to be a good topic today. There's lots of meaty things that are in here that anyone who is looking for a job can benefit from. Anybody who's hiring can benefit from. Anybody in the recruiting process can benefit from. So I'm going to turn the floor over to you, my friend. Where do you want to start?
Yeah, well, it's funny. First of all, too, I want to point out that you asked me, you said, in your opinion, what are they? And I said, well, it's not an opinion. I said, it's the truth. It's the gospel truth to me. But the three things, yeah, are technical skills, internal locus of control, and internal passion. And I'd like to start right at the top. And the reason why I like to start at the top is because, it literally needs to flow in this order for it to work. And here's what I mean by that. So the first thing that I always like to assess is people's technical ability for the job. And I'd like to point out that a lot of people look at that, and what they look for is credentials, right, to prove skill set. I disagree with that approach. I'm looking for competency. And what I mean specifically by that is that a lot of people, they want experience only. And like I've had people that want experience with a certain stream, maybe it's a talent, operations, maintenance, what have you. Um, but I've also had people that are like, even if you have experience with that skill set, or maybe you've been an accountant before in a certain industry, as an example, they also want you to actually have worked in your industry for a whole number of years. And commercial realty, maybe they want you to have 8 years of experience in commercial realty as an accountant would be a great example. But the thing is that that doesn't actually tell you if they're going to do a good job in that role. And that's where the rest of the locus of control and internal passion come in. And a lot of times too is you're limiting your candidate pool when you do that. So I don't necessarily look for credentials. I look specifically for competency. And the reason why I list technical skill first is because it's the first thing that you see during the recruiting process, because people list their technical skill in their resume, right? It's in the resume. And that's how you determine if they have that or not. Or at least that's how you preliminarily determine if they have that or not, is by what are they listing in the resume? Is the work experience that they do have make sense for the job that they're applying for? But I always challenge people, don't just zero in on specific years of experience in a specific industry. Zero in on the actual skills, the actual competency, and is it there, and do they have experience with those skills? And that's the first thing you need in the right candidate, is you need the right technical skills.
Yeah, you know what? Okay, I would agree with you on that. And I want to add something else to that as well. So when we talk about the technical components of being skilled in an arena, I look for issues and promote strategy and tactics around a person's ability to think and navigate through a problem and an ability to solve it, which to me in the same breath is competency. I view
Right.
the technical part of it in terms of the database, the technical, the digital component of it is a skill set that can easily be learned and developed. However, thinking through the problems and being able to navigate through issues and challenges is one of the more difficult components to develop in an individual. Do they have the ability to think big picture for globally, for wherever the market is for the particular company, to be able to think big picture for the organization, and for the project or whatever it is they're trying to promote? And do they also have the ability to micro manage the process in terms of drilling down and looking at the minute details in terms of what might be missing or not missing? So I can view
Exactly.
somebody being, super skilled in an interview situation as a classic example. Somebody can ace the interview process, but actually not be able to do the job very well and have some of the elements of the people skills, being able to navigate, being able to become exceptionally resourceful in solving a problem. And to me, that is a skill set. So both of them are very, very valuable. And I think it's important to measure the both. So share with me a little bit about your thoughts on that.
Yeah, I think you're right. And we're going to get into the interview and how that plays a role when it comes to internal locus of control and internal passion. And the reason for that is because it's actually, so 80% of people in the world who do interviews have no training on how to do it. And so if you have training, there is actually a way that you can use the interview to determine properly how they're going to use that skill set. And you can ask questions and properly decipher the answers around it based on the interview to determine what their self-motivation and interest level is in the role, and whether or not they're actually going to use that skill set in the setting that you've provided them with the specific needs that you have for that role. So I agree with you, and people just need to know how to look for that and what they need to look for and what questions they need to ask and how to interpret the answers to those questions. Absolutely.
Do you give us an idea of some of the questions that you would be asking in that area to kind of
Sure.
decipher and gain some clarity on where you want to go next in the interview or who might be the candidate?
Good idea. So why don't we, as we get into that, why don't we talk about the next two things, because I think those are directly linked to different interview questions. So once you've determined that you've got the right technical skill set, the next thing you want to do is you want to interview them, and you're going to interview them for two things. The first thing that you're going to interview them for is their locus of control. Now, that sounds like a really fancy term, and here's what it means. People either have an internal or they have an external locus of control. An internal locus of control means that they believe that when things happen to them, that they have the ability to affect the outcome, right? When there's a problem, they believe that they can affect the outcome. They believe that they can, they believe that they can make a difference. They believe that their actions will actually help resolve a problem, and they're self-motivated. People with an external locus of control, it's all up to somebody else. They don't believe that there's anything that they can do about it. They don't believe that there's anything that they can change, and they leave it all up to other people. Which one do you think that you want in your business or on your team?
Oh, definitely, because this is a really important concept and a really critical thing to navigate around and to develop within ourselves. We want the internal focus of control, or locus of control, which is, if somebody was to really decipher this down, it is taking 100% responsibility for what happens around
Exactly.
you. You're not pointing any fingers at anyone else, and there's no blame involved, which is the external component. You're actually saying, I am 100% responsible for every experience that I'm having in this workplace environment, good, bad, or otherwise. And therefore, it positions me in a place of what can I do about this? And what do I need to work on within myself? That is an extremely important attribute to develop. This is the crux of mindset, essentially. And if you don't have this well developed in a leadership role or within the role of somebody being hired and moving into an organization, if you don't work on developing this specific tool within your own brain, you've got a major problem.
Exactly. And so what you want to do is, and this is how you can also, um, see if they're going to be motivated to work in the skill set, is you want to ask questions of people in the interview that present barriers or obstacles to them that they might see in this job that's based on the skill set required that you need for this job. So here's what I mean by that. If you need somebody to be a great leader, you need them to be able to have the courage to approach people when there's conflict or manage it well, or disagree with their boss or what have you, right? And what you can do is you can ask questions that throw up those types of obstacles, and then you can see how they responded to them. So you could say, I want you to tell me about a specific time that you disagreed with your boss. What action did you take, and what was the end result? And based on that, you're going to find out right away if that person has an internal locus of control, because here's what they're going to be able to share with you. You've got two types of people. You've got people that can share you specific stories where they've actually done these things before, where they've actually um, had experiences with that, and they can tell you specific stories. And if they can tell you specific stories about it, then you also know that they're going to be self-motivated to exert an internal locus of control, to not be afraid of these problems when they happen, because they're not afraid to share the story with you either. But you want somebody who's going to share with you a specific story where they did that thing or they overcame that obstacle and they took action. They can tell you about the action that they personally took to fix the problem. So in the case of disagreeing with the boss, there's some people that'll say to you, well, Deb, I'll tell you what, you got to be honest with your boss. And when these things happen, you got to tell them what you think and be upfront and offer them contributions and advice and other points of view, et cetera and so forth. Who wouldn't say that? Everybody would. Who's actually going to do something about it? Not everybody. If they can say to you, well, Deb, I'll tell you what, I once had a boss that was doing something that I don't think they meant to do it, but it was actually kind of unethical. And so I approached them about it and I pointed it out. And I said, I think, wait a second, we got to do this better. And I told them how to do it. They agreed with me and they let me do it. Well, great. There I have somebody who actually could tell me how they took action to do it. They have stories. And it's just like having kids. Every kid, if you ask them hypothetically, they're going to tell you that they're going to do the right thing, right? But they're learning and they don't always do what they say they're going to do because they're just kids. But it's no different when you're interviewing somebody. If somebody can't give you that specific example and tell you how they personally took action to solve the problem, they don't have that internal locus of control to really do it for you. And I hate to say it, but it's all talk and all bluster at that point.
Absolutely. I 100% agree with that. And the issue around the stories too is that if the details are not there, the specifics within the story are not there, it's a made up story and it's not a real story.
Exactly. Yeah, you're right about that. And it's as simple as that at the end of the day, but most people don't pursue that and they don't think about that. And I can tell you, most people don't even answer questions like that as a recruiter who does hundreds of interviews a year. And so that is the most important thing, right? Is that they can be specific with you and tell you. The other thing too is when you frame questions like that, tell me about a specific time when, and they can't tell you about a specific, they're also just not even answering your question. They're not answering the question. They're just spewing stuff out at you as a story, and they're not answering the questions. They can't tell you about a specific time. So it tells you a lot about people when you do that. And when I interview people, I'll come up with a collection of 5 or 6 questions that are used to determine their locus of control that way around problems that they might experience. And that will be my indicator as to whether or not they have that internal locus of control. For each question, I either give them a +1 if they demonstrate that internal locus of control to me, if they can show me that they have specific stories with examples, right, et cetera, and so forth. And if they can't, I just give them a -1. And at the end of the day, that's how I score it. It's as simple as that. And that's how I determine if people have an internal or an external locus of control.
The questioning becomes really important because the questions can be specific enough to pull out of the individual really good content and information from which there we can make proper decision making in the hiring process. So an example of that would be choosing questions that allows the story to play out, that you're gathering the details of the story, but also clarifying within the story, how is this person navigating the different personality traits, how they are really listening and understanding, how they're gathering their information, how they're executing tact and diplomacy, how they are using and working within a very well-structured value system of
That's right.
doing the right thing, and displaying, critical values of trust and honesty, and integrity, those sorts of things. So I think that the elements of the questions, what needs to also come out is sort of you're deciphering in the conversation as they're sharing their story. Do they have an ability to really listen? Do they have the ability to really understand and guide the other person in terms of a resolution for a problem or working things through? Are they actually doing what is right for the person, maybe for the company as a whole? So the values and ethics come into play there. And are they displaying and exemplifying a feeling of trust and compassion for somebody that they're guiding, not being entirely judgmental or and critical in the process, but really having compassion that they're struggling, and so they're mentoring and guiding people through the process. And then a leader controlling the conversation or guiding in such a way that they're not ridiculing somebody or condemning somebody or placing blame or fault. So they're actually learning to control the process and guiding people forward in a very positive way.
Exactly. You're bang on. Yeah, everything you said is kind of what I would look for as well, right? And that's what you're doing, right? And it depends on the type of role it is. So like, let's say it's a project management role, you could ask, or a role that has elements of project management. You could say things like, tell me about a specific time you were working on a project that wasn't going to make the deadline. What action did you take when that happened? What was the end result? Tell me about a specific time you had lots of priorities on the go at once. What action did you take to organize them? But you can come up with any level of questions,
Right.
That would draw out people's ability to act with the skill set and the talent that you need in that job. Yeah, absolutely, you could. And that is the biggest. I mean, it seems simple, but you'd be surprised. Like, a lot of people struggle with that, and that's the biggest, most important way that you can find out if people have, the self-motivation or the internal locus of control. At the end of the day, that is the biggest thing that you need to do to find that out.
Yeah, the other factors that I look for are how people really manage their own emotions in a process of conflict and difficulty, when they're really faced with major challenges. Are they maintaining some level of control of their emotions and not allowing the anger to get out of control, fear to get out of control, blame to get out of control in that process? So
That's right.
and the managing of the emotions is a really important thing. So how they really blow off steam when they are under a lot of pressure comes into play there. So let's talk a little bit about this internal passion process, because
Sure.
I mean, literally, we need to have an ability to drive our own motivation, our own passion and interests in moving things forward. And I believe a person should be very self-motivated and not allow that to be impacted by what's going on around them.
That's right. But so here's how internal passion comes into play, right? So here's a great example. Let's say that somebody wanted to ask me to start knitting, right? There's a pretty good chance, Deb, that I can figure out, I have the technical skill to learn how to, move the needles and do all that stuff. When it comes to internal locus of control, well, I sure hope that I have that. I mean, as you know, I started my own business, which can be pretty scary. And if I don't have that, my family's in a whole lot of trouble if I don't have that internal locus of control to make that work and get out there and get after it. But when it comes to knitting, there's a pretty decent chance here that I probably will not have a sustained interest in it, right? So if that isn't also present in the equation when it comes to interviewing and hiring the right person, what do you think that's going to do to their longevity in the role, or how long they're going to stay interested in the role for? Not
You're right.
great.
It has to exist, that
Mhm.
ability to sustain that interest and that passion within, and to push through all sorts of difficulties and setbacks, and to maintain that over a longer period of time is an important quality to develop.
Exactly. Yeah. And so if you don't have that, right, then that's the third piece of the puzzle that's missing. So what you can do is you can ask interview questions around things like, tell me about what your most favorite job was and why. And I recommend that. So a lot of people will ask things like, hey, what motivates you in the workplace? Well, that's a very hypothetical question. Instead of asking a hypothetical, ask them instead, what has been your most favorite place to work and why? Because now it's specific and people aren't going to give you a hypothetical response. If you think about it, if you ask somebody, what motivates you in the workplace, they're probably going to tell you a lot of the characteristics that exist in the job that you have, or at least they think that exists in the job that you have. It isn't because they're being bad people or they're trying to mislead you. It's just because we have a customer service mindset and we want to, we put it in a way to people that we think that they're looking for, because that's just part of us trying to be customer service people, right? When you ask people to tell you specifically about their favorite place to work or their least favorite place to work, what ends up happening is that you get the truth, and what you want to listen for is the characteristics of those workplaces and to see if you have a match. Because if the characteristics that they liked match the workplace that you're in, great. If they don't, well, then you've got, this might not be the right job for them either. If
Yeah,
that makes sense.
no, it totally makes sense. These are really important factors to take into consideration when you're hiring, when you're recruiting, when you're looking for a job, to really search within. And I think it's really important that a person maintain that sense of curiosity about things, where you're intentionally being curious and you're intentionally being interested in learning new things. And that if you have that mindset of maintaining a level of curiosity, you will start to increase that level of passion within you that is sustained over a longer period of time. But if you are a person that goes, you know what, I'm pretty bored here, things are pretty boring, it's like the old, what is it, the old Tony Robbins concept of, is it's nothing about that thing that's boring, you're boring. You've chosen to be a boring person and to view things in an aspect that is sucking the life out of you, as we would say, rather than
Exactly.
with an energy and a drive to go forward.
Yeah, and there's other questions that you can ask around that too, such as, the famous strengths or weaknesses question. That's really about that too. It's what gives you energy versus what doesn't, and basically, or like, what do you want to do with your career for the next 2 to 5 years? That's trying to find out if this is going to have a long-term fit for you. I would warn people around that question. You don't need everybody who's going to answer that question and say, "Well, I want to be at your company and forever, work my way up." You don't need that. Nobody's going to be ever with you forever either. But what you need is, you just need somebody who's going to contribute for a period of time. Not forever. Everybody leaves at some point, but do their career goals match their ability to work with you for any period of time and make a contribution? I can tell you, like, on that question, I once hired somebody that his career goal is, I want to be a pilot within the next 3 or 4 years. And some people were like, well, that's, we want somebody who's we don't want to have to replace him and all this stuff. I get that. But you know what? It wasn't the type of job that everybody's ever going to stay in for the rest of their life anyway. I got 3 to 4 years out of something that was a great contributor, because I knew that because of his career goal, he was self-motivated and this wasn't the last stop for him. And so he was going to put in a great effort while he was there with us. Sure enough, he got promoted to management in his time there. And he earned it. He was a great employee and great team member because he was self-motivated as well. So internal passion is all about just figuring out, their lasting interest in the job. And again, lasting interest, don't ever misinterpret that for being forever. That just doesn't work. Nobody is here forever. I'm not going to own my company forever. It's just, life is finite. But what you want to do is figure out, where they want to go with things career-wise, using a series of 5 or 6 questions to verify that they're going to be, have some lasting interest in the job and not just leave, say, in a week or a month or something like that.
Yeah, no, I love that. I absolutely love that. When we are healthy mentally and emotionally as individuals, we naturally have this internal growth aspiration. We want to aspire to higher levels of growth, development, personal awareness. That naturally happens within us as long as we are mentally and emotionally healthy and have the right mindset going forward. So we can anticipate that if it is one of those mundane type of jobs that people are not being groomed and developed for higher level positions from within, or provided any opportunities to take any courses to develop their skill sets, maybe to use inside and both outside of the job, but to give them a sense of satisfaction that the company is contributing to them more than just simply a paycheck and benefits. So
exactly,
you're going to lose people with that, because we have a natural propensity to want to be able to stretch ourselves and to go a little bit beyond the comfort zone of, hey, I want to learn something new here. I want to experience something new. I want some new challenges that are available to us. It is the individuals that are stuck within themselves, that are self-sabotaging, that do not want to go beyond their comfort zone and stretch and move and grow and develop themselves. So those things we very much have to be aware of when you go into an interview situation, but also when you are interviewing, when you're looking or developing for leadership. Are these people personally interested in wanting to develop themselves so that they can better navigate the world around them?
Exactly. Yeah, exactly. You're right about that. And that's what it's all about at the end of the day, right? And I see we're coming up on time, but that's how you tie together, right, those 3 components, is that lasting interest. And like I say, if those 3 things are there, that technical skill, the internal locus of control, or self-motivation, the way I like to call it, and the internal passion, then that's how you know that somebody's going to have lasting motivation and ability to do the job that you have for them.
Beautiful. No, thank you, Tim. These are really great topics and things to keep top of mind when we are pursuing, looking for a new career. And for our audience, these elements are very important to develop within, and it is really important that you incorporate those. So there are 2 people right here on this LinkedIn Live that can help you to navigate these 3 areas to ensure that you are presenting your very best self in an interview situation, but also that you are presenting the very best of your organization for prospects coming in. So to our audience, we wish you a happy Black Friday, happy shopping. We know you just had your Thanksgiving yesterday, so happy Thanksgiving to our American audience. And we'll see you in a couple weeks for Recruit, Hire, Lead to Retain. Thank you, everyone.
See ya.